Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. We're back on GT Sport and we're back with a GR2 race driving at Suzuka. It's the daily race C, 10 laps of Suzuka, and we're starting P3. As the video suggests, I absolutely love this car. This is probably my favourite car in the game that I've tried so far. It's just everything about the way you can put it into the corners. I much prefer this to the NSX, although the NSX is actually a faster car. You can tell by the leaderboard it was just top 6 were all pretty much NSX. It was one in the same car as me. Pretty much his time was pretty much what I think I could have got if I would have pushed it. Obviously we came on after the FIA race, put a qualifying lap in, improved our lap very slightly from what we did in the morning, but then I wanted to just get racing. Did a number of races to start the day, as you can see there, just straight into the fuel saving mode behind P2 there. I wanted to save fuel through this section because at the start everyone's a little bit cautious. I thought might as well put it in fuel save mixture free, stay with him as well and save some fuel during this phase. So yeah, like I was saying, I wanted to try this car out in a race. We did a few races before this, and we had a force feedback bug. I think it's just a bug with the game. It's happened once before a while ago. The force feedback went completely light. I had no wheel weight. The only time the bit of wheel weight came in was when I was doing left-hand corners. Then we reset our whole system, and then we came back to the game, loaded up again, and the force feedback was extremely heavy. So I unplugged everything, turned it off completely, unplugged the steering wheel, left it off for a good few minutes. Came back to the game after watching some TV, turned it back on, and it was all okay. Had a quick practice in the pre-qualifying, went into this race, and I think we did 2 races. One before this we won fairly comfortably. There wasn't many people in because loads of people got disconnected. But then the next race we had a few fast people, and we got Bears there, very fast driver. He was actually I think he might have squeezed into the top 10 stars in that NSX. It was definitely the strongest car for this track. You can see it when you're behind it and also in the straights, but I prefer this car, the Lexus GR2. It's just so much nicer to drive. I feel like every braking point I want to hit, I can hit. Every single apex is pretty much, you can hit every time. As you can see, going into the apex there, I can really attack the apex with this car. I just feel more confident getting on the power. Comparing it how I was having to drive the NSX, I just feel more confident on this. As P2 runs wide and goes off the track, and we get P2. So let's have a little look how that started. So he's driving the same car, but he brakes a little bit too late. You can see going into the chicane, he brakes too late, misses the apex slightly because he goes too deep in, and then he's compromised by putting steering inputs in now, and he's lost the rear a little bit there. He's trying to turn it through that corner, he runs off and he's lost that position, and we're up to P2. And now we can attack and really try and put some pressure on Bears, although he's in the NSX, which is obviously a little bit faster than the car we're driving. But I feel more confident in this car, and we've obviously managed to save that fuel on that lap 1, and we're still saving fuel now through this sector, as you can see there. I expected him to pull away a bit as I was trying to save fuel, but I wasn't really worried because I thought if I've managed to save that fuel in the first stint, we can probably get that back in the pit stop. So at this point we're just concentrating on our lines. You can see I just love the way that where you want to put the car, it just goes there. And for anyone, this is one thing I have to say about this, some people are probably going to say, oh, that car doesn't look like it should do in real life, it's got too much grip. Well, it clearly hasn't, because I went onto the Super GT website to see what the lap times was for this car at Suzuka, and they were obviously done on softer tyres. Remember, we're doing default setups on hard tyres. They've probably got obviously tuned up setup and on slightly softer tyres. So if I did this run now with default tyres on soft tyres, default setup with soft tyres, I'm guessing we would have done like a 46 something, maybe a low 47, a 46 something like that with the default setup. Now they were doing 45.8 in real life, so clearly they've got more speed than what we've got here. So I'm guessing with a setup and soft tyres for a qualifying run, we would pretty much be identical to the real life lap time. So the speed we're carrying around the corners in this car is pretty much close to real life, and you can feel that. It feels like it should. I really like this car. This is probably my favourite car on the game. I don't think there's another car that I like as much as this. It suits my driving style. It suits the way I put the steering inputs in. It suits the way I want to put the accelerator down and get on the power. It's just such a nice car to drive, and I have to say they've done an amazing job with this car. This is one of my favourite cars out of any game I've driven. It really reminds me of driving the DTM touring car on Project Cars. I love that car on that game, and this really reminds me of it. The way you can throw it into the corners, the grip you get, the acceleration, the power, everything about it is identical to that car. Even the view when you're inside the car and looking at it from outside the car, it looks really similar. Obviously it's running similar kind of aero package to them DTM cars. They're obviously very close in spec. DTM and Super GT are quite close to spec cars in terms of like the way they obviously aerodynamically and the power. I think it's all around 500 horsepower, so very similar cars. And I absolutely, I can't explain how much I like this car. If I see any races in GR2, this is a car pick. Even if this is the weaker car, I just prefer driving this. I do need to still drive the Nissan to see what that is like to drive. So maybe next time there's a GR2 that's on, I'll try and drive that and see what I think compared to this, you know, in terms of race pace and, you know, qualifying. You can see he's actually pulling away a little bit, but I've obviously, if you notice, I'm not shifting maximum revs. I'm still fuel saving sometimes as well. I'm trying to short shift it a bit so that when we get to the pit stop, we've got a bit more, maybe a bit more fuel. So going to the end of lap 3, see, we're not losing too much time. We're only 1.5 seconds behind him, so we're not actually losing as much time as I expected with the fact that we're saving fuel. And obviously doing some short shifting. So going through this really fast corner, you can just take it flat out and the car just sticks to the road. It's so enjoyable. Going into the braking zone, and he's braked late. Look at that. He's gone into that corner too deep. We just go straight through him because he's a ghost car and I can see it. Pull out the corner and we've got ourselves into P1. So let's have a little look how that happened. Going through the corner, this fast corner, obviously no issues with this NXX. You take it flat out, exactly the same as the Lexus. No issues there, plenty of grip. Comes into the braking zone and he brakes a bit. You can see he braked far too late. He braked near enough on the 100. He brakes too late onto the AstroTurf. His car's bouncing around. We just go through the corner and we take that lead, which is really good because we've obviously managed to save some fuel as well. So now I thought I'm not going to do any more massive fuel saving. I'm just going to keep the in fuel mix 1, but maybe change at the end of that bar that builds up on the bottom of the rev bar. We're not going to let it rev really hard. We're just going to change gear pretty much at that end point. So we're going to drive it reasonably aggressive, but we're not going to just drive it too aggressive that we're going to burn all the fuel up that we've managed to save. So straight away, we look like we're actually building a little bit of a lead up here now. We're 1.5, 2 seconds. We've actually got it up to 2 seconds. I love that first sector in this car. I just enjoy driving it. You could throw it into the corners. Every line you want to hit it, it hits it. It's just an enjoyable car to drive, and I absolutely love this car. I think they've done an amazing job with the GR2 cars, to be brutally honest. I think, you know, it might not be the most perfect physics-wise in terms of what they, you know, the base physics on GT Sport, but I feel this is, you know, really enjoyable, and it feels like it's a race car. It feels like you're driving a car with a lot of downforce and a lot of grip, and that's what you want from these cars. That's what they're like in real life. If you ever hear people talking about these cars in real life that drive them, they talk about how much grip they've got and how much they can throw them into the corners, and that's what you want from this game, and it's created it perfectly. As you can see there, we're managing to hold that lead around the 1.8, 1.6 seconds, I think it is there. We've not got it at 2 seconds. We seem to be a bit weaker in certain sections over that NSX. I think the NSX might have had a bit more power, a bit more straight line speed than this Lexus, but it wasn't a massive difference, but it's enough to make, you can see a clear difference on the top 10 leaderboard. Everyone in the top 4 places was all on the NSX, and I think it was like half a second quicker than the first Lexus on the leaderboard. I think there was only one Lexus in that top 10. We should have really got the Lexus into that top 10. We were on a lap that would have done a 48.5, and I just, on the last chicane, I just went for it to try and, you know, really excel in the lap, and I braked too late and lost it. So, you know, that was when I was really pushing, but we didn't get much time to push the qualifying lap. Obviously I wanted to get the racing done because the racing's more important. That's where we're going to be doing our footage for YouTube. So I didn't want to just spend hours doing qualifying and like, you know, half an hour doing qualifying. I just wanted to get into I just literally did a session before the race and managed to improve our lap, and then that was it. I wasn't worried about going any faster. It was just about concentrating on our race. As you can see there, we've actually built the gap up now. So what I'm thinking has gone on from the last lap and this lap is, I think P2 is saving his fuel. He's trying to build that fuel up for the pit stop to try and get closer to us. So I had the feeling he was doing a lot of fuel saving during these last 2 laps to really try and bring himself back into the race. Obviously we did a bit in that first time. As you can see, I'm back. If you notice, I started using the fuel mixture to 2 again, because that's what I thought. I think he's doing a lot of fuel saving, so I'll try and equal it out a bit, because I only really noticed at this point that we'd built that 3.4 second lead up. So instantly I knew that he's probably been doing some fuel saving to try and bring himself back into it at the pits phase. So we're probably going to be a little bit down when I went into the pits, but we shouldn't be drastically down because we obviously had them first few laps where we could fuel safe behind the leader. As you can see, they're back into fuel mixer 2 on that fast corner, and just trying to save some fuel again for this pit stop, just so I don't lose the lead. Obviously we only got just over a 3-second lead, so if he's done a lot it could be very close, but I was pretty confident that we'd still come out in the lead. Going through the final corner, pushing reasonably hard there. You can see I'm not changing gear maximum revs, I'm sometimes short shifting it, just trying to save fuel wherever possible that won't lose me too much time in terms of lap time. So going into the pits, reasonably aggressive, flat out now, putting the hard tyres on, and now we just got to put our fuel in. So we've got 12% fuel left, he's got 18% fuel left, so he only managed to save 6% more in them few laps where he'd been doing fuel saving. So we should come out in the lead now. Let's have a little look what happens when we come out in the lead. So you can see there our tyres are on and we're accelerating out in a second. We just got to wait for that fuel to go in. So patiently waiting. It feels like a lifetime when you're in the car. And we put it onto the diamond and we actually went a little bit higher so that obviously to counteract the fuel saving we don't see, we've got 0.1. So we give ourselves a little bit more fuel if I need it. And he's come out around 2 seconds behind us. So he has gained in that pit stop. He's gained about 1.5 seconds through that extra 6% that he managed to save. But at this phase I thought I was fairly confident, because for him to come out there he must have obviously fueled to the diamond, and that diamond is representative of what the fuel you've used in that first stint. So if we've put that little extra in and he's slightly under fueled, he's going to have to do some fuel saving in this last stint, whereas I can do a little bit by just short shifting in pretty much one mixture. I thought I won't really need to do too much in mixture 2. I can pretty much just run fuel mixture 1, short shift it a little bit, and change gear a little bit early. You'll see me doing it on some of the corners where I don't rev it all the way to the maximum on the bar. I'll do some short shifting just so that we don't use all our fuel up. So going into the braking zone, you can see he's catching up obviously where he's pushing that NSX really hard in this initial few laps. He's obviously trying to get into our slipstream and catch up as much as he can. But at this point I wasn't that worried, to be brutally honest. I felt like I had the consistency, I felt like I could put the car where I wanted it. So even if there was no overtaking opportunity, I felt like I could go defensive and cover it. So at this point now he is gaining, but we're just concentrating on our drive. And just look at the way it drives. Every single corner you want to put it into the corner and it just does exactly what you want it to do. Such a nice car to drive. I know I keep saying it, but this is easily my favourite car I think on GT Sport that I've tried so far. I obviously haven't tried all the cars. I've tried a lot of GR4, I've tried a lot of GR3, and I've tried two of the 3 GR2, and hopefully I have a feeling that we're going to get more GR2 cars, hopefully, maybe a couple more in over the next few updates. I'm guessing they obviously wanted to get 3 so they could introduce the class into the game, and then I'm hoping they'll add a few more. I'm hoping there's some more classes in, and a GR5 class would be nice. Something like the Ginetta, like the Ginetta GT5 cars, them type of cars, a little bit lower in power, or even touring cars. Some cars that have got a lot of grip, but only like 300 horsepower, so a little bit weaker than the GT4 cars. So around 300 horsepower, but a lot of grip still. I think that'd be really entertaining cars to have in the game. Something like the Megane, if anyone's seen it, the Megane touring car on the Megane Trophy touring car on Project Cars 2. That is a great car. It's just over 300 horsepower, and something like that I think on this class on a GT5, like a Group 5 class, would be amazing. As you can see there, he's managing to close that gap up. So what I predicted at this point was he's going to be using a lot of his fuel and trying to get the fastest lap. That was my theory of what he's trying to do right now. But I wasn't going to go for that. At this point I thought there's not really much point me trying to do a 1 minute. We had done it in a previous race at 49.9. That was the best lap I think we did in race conditions. But there was no point me pushing to that extent. You can see I'm just revving it pretty much. I'm a bit before the maximum. I'm changing it a little bit early. On some gears like there, we're upshifting to 4 fairly. We're not pushing the limits on the gear changes maximum. I just want to keep it in fuel mixture 1 and just keep the consistency. That was more important to me at this stage of the race than just going flat out and going for that ultimate 1 lap and getting the fastest lap of the race. Although I think he wanted that fastest lap. I think he, obviously at the cost of other things, in terms of fuel, it could have been at the cost of fuel. I'm not too sure. Let's just see how the race goes along as we get through to the final lap. So you can see there, we're still maintaining around the 1.6 second lead, and every time he gets that final chicane, he seems to be struggling. I think he might have braked a little bit late on that corner again, and he's lost about another half a second as we go over the lap and actually get the fastest lap of the race at this point, 1 minute 50.6. But he was on for a faster lap at that stage. I think he would have been on for a low 50, 50.1, 50.0, something like that. But again, like I said, I wasn't too worried. We're back into fuel saving. You see, because I saw him make that mistake, I'm going back into the fuel saving using fuel mixer 2, because I'm going to let him catch back up, because I want to make sure in the last few laps, if I need to defend or anything, I've got that one mixture that I can use and drive it aggressively if I have to. I had a strong feeling that at this stage of the race he would have had less fuel than what we had. You can see now we've got just a couple of laps to go. We've got 2.5 laps pretty much to go. Coming to the midway point in lap 8. He's around 1.6 seconds behind at this point again. He's caught that up again, so he's obviously pushing quite hard on this lap again, trying to get that fastest lap of the race. And at this stage, like I say, I wasn't really going for that fastest lap. You could see with the fuel saving in terms of short shifting sometimes. We were revving it hard on some points of the track, but a lot of the points I was still trying to do short shifting, as I wanted to make sure that for them, like, I had enough fuel at the end if we needed it. And you can see there 2.5 laps remaining, so we're doing okay in the fuel. This straight does use a lot of your fuel up, so you can see me going into 4th gear early before we get onto that corner, so we don't use a lot of fuel up in 3rd gear where you really accelerate hard and burn that fuel away. So again, changing gear pretty much at the end of that rev, not letting it rev too much. We want to try and save our fuel. Coming into the this corner now, braking just before that 100, nicely into the apex again. You can see I can just feel like I can control the car just so nice in terms of where I want to put it. We're accelerating over the line and just trying to keep the laps consistent. You can see there, lap again a 50.8 this time, so 2/10 slower, and he goes line on a 50.0. So he's really pushing and trying to burn that fuel away. We don't really need to worry about our fuel now. It still says 2.0 laps of fuel at this point, so we're very close to being able to run that one mixture all the way to the end without any worries now. As you can see there, going through these really fast corners, really the part of the track that seems to suit my car, and I feel like I can push reasonably hard through this phase of the track, and he's managed to stay reasonably close with us through this phase. He's still about 1.7 seconds behind, so at this point we've got that lead under control. We're managing that lead, we're controlling the lead, and we're driving reasonably aggressive, but you can see I'm not pushing the limits on the gear shifts as much as we could, but it's just about just keeping the lap time. Look how consistent we are, only literally fractions off our best lap. It's just every lap is just consistent. That's what we wanted to do. If you look at our deltas, like the first few laps we were obviously fuel saving. We did a 50.8, a 51.2, a 50.8, then the pit stop phase and a 50.6. It's just consistency, and that's what I aim to do on this track, because this track can catch you out if you drive too aggressively. As you can see now, we've actually built up the lead to 2.5 seconds. So this is where I started to think he's having to fuel save, because look how much his times are dropping off now. He's down to nearly 3 seconds behind us. So I think I was correct in what I had predicted earlier on in the race, that he's having to save fuel because he had used too much fuel up. So he's now 3.2 seconds behind. He's really having to fuel save. You can see it now, 3.5 seconds. He's obviously having to coast through some of these corners. We've still got the fuel to drive aggressively, so we've done the right strategy, I think, and it's worked. And our consistent race pace has paid off, and we even go over the line with a slightly better lap this time, 50.3, and that's without driving 100% aggressive. So we've definitely got good pace with this car, and I was really happy with my performance so far. As you can see, going into the last lap, I decided to put it. We've got a 4-second lead. There's no point me driving too aggressive, so we put it into fuel mixer 2. We're just going to use that for safety. It just creates a smoother car in general. So going through this really fast section in fuel mixer 2, we're not going to lose drastic time doing that. Maybe just a 10th or 2. Just trying to keep it consistent. We don't want to make any errors on this final lap. As you can see, the gap's now up to 6 seconds nearly, where he's obviously having to save a lot of fuel. He must be cruising through some of these corners and lifting, coasting, because I don't know whether he had misjudged the amount of laps he had left or something, but it definitely looks like he had used too much fuel since that pit stop, or he didn't put enough fuel in the pit stop, and that's how he managed to catch us up during the pit stop phase. That's one thing you do need to remember with the pit stop, is that diamond will represent the fuel that you've saved during that first stint. So you need to try and drive it very similar, and that's what some people do tend to make mistakes on, but I'm not too sure. I mean, my guess is that he just drove really aggressively for a few laps to try and catch us up, and he's used a bit too much fuel, and he's now got a fuel save. As you can see there, he's 6.2, 6.3 seconds behind. We're driving fairly comfortably now, and we can just take it over the line. Not pushing too hard in this last lap, obviously. We don't want to make any stupid errors. We just want to keep it on the track and try and take a nice win in this car, and a really enjoyable win, and a great race. I really enjoy driving this car on this track. it just feels so nice through that first section to be able to floor it, and through this really fast left-hander you don't have to lift at all, it just grips and bites, and it looks like it's going to be a nice comfortable win in the end. So you can see there we're nearly 7 seconds ahead, going through the last chicane for the final time, going over the line. You can see we judged our fuel pretty much to perfection again. 0.2, it's going to be on about 0.1 as we go over the line. Yeah, 0.1 laps of fuel, so judged it to perfection. We go over the line, nothing spectacular on the last lap, obviously just maintaining our consistency. 51.5 and just nicely over the line, and a nice solid win. We go over in the end by 8 seconds. He's got a 1 second penalty, so it was 7 seconds, but he had the seconds worth of penalties to get rid of. So a consistent win, and I'm really happy with that performance. And again, I absolutely love that car. It's going to be interesting to try out the Nissan to see how that compares, because I haven't tried that car out yet. I've tried the other two GR2 cars out, and it's definitely the Lexus is my preferred car out of them two. Hopefully though they do a little bit of a nerf on that NSX just to bring them a bit more equal. I think maybe a 1% power decrease on the, like I say, on the NSX will make them pretty much 100% equal, because the Lexus is a nicer car to drive. You feel like you got more confidence, but I think overall when you get used to it, the NSX is the faster car. But I haven't driven the Nissan to have any sort of impression on that car yet, so that'll be an interesting first drive when we get round to doing that. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. We're going to be back with more GT Sport videos very soon, including the FIA Nations this week, and hopefully some daily races as well. Thanks again for watching everyone, and make sure you hit that like button if you've enjoyed the video, subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification button so you don't miss out on any future videos. Thanks again everyone.